One thing that new players to World Warships quickly find out is that the real grind in the game isn't the XP that you have to acquire in order to unlock the next ship in the tech tree, but rather it's the credits that you have to obtain in order to purchase that next ship in the tech tree. And credits aren't just used for purchasing ships, they are used to, well, finance your gameplay. At the end of each battle, you have post-battle service that must be paid for each ship. You have ammunition cost as well that you have to pay. And you can also use credits to buy things like signal flags and camouflages for your ships as well. So credits are a resource that, well, is in pretty high demand in World of Warships. And how do you manage to get the maximum amount of credits out of this game as possible? Well, I've done a video on that in the past explaining exactly how to min-max the economy. I'll link that somewhere around here. But one of the best ways that you can boost your earnings is, besides buying premium time, purchasing a premium ship. Now, there are some premium ships in the past that have had better economies just baked into them, but after the normalization of the economy with the economic rework, that is no longer the case. So, pretty much all premium ships have the exact same economy that are sold today, at least, as other premium ships at their tier. So if you want to get a ship that's good at farming credits, well, you got to get a ship that's good at doing what it does, right? And that's what we are going over in today's video, the top 5 credit farming ships in the year of our Lord 2024 in World Warships. Now, the ships in this list are ships that are available right now. Again, there are some ships that still have their legacy economy attached to them that, well, really you can't pick any of them up anymore, so it wouldn't make much of a point to talk about old Missouri or old Roma or old Kobayashi Key, because you literally cannot obtain those ships anymore. So we're just going over ships that are currently available to newer players. And again, all these ships are available. Some of them are cash premiums, some of them are doubloon premiums, some of them are coal premiums as well. Any one of these ships, if you pick them up and know what you're doing, they will have no problem making you money. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. But first, if you do find this video helpful, informational, or entertaining, please make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 60,000 subscribers. We're getting pretty close to that goal, and we are doing a giveaway once we get there. So thank you guys for that, and make sure you stick around for that as well. But anyway, on to number 5. We have the Tier 8 Premium American Destroyer, the Kid. Now, the Kid is great at making money for 2 reasons. First off, if you build into it, she is a really solid cap contesting destroyer. By that, I mean she can, in most cases, especially with the tools that she has available to her, she can bully other DDs out of the caps, and if they don't want to leave, she will essentially outright kill them, again, if you know what you're doing. And that's great for 2 reasons. One, capping is worth a lot in this game. In the formula that's used to calculate your in-game earnings, capping is one of the most profitable things you can do. Anything from assisting in cap to solo capping. Solo capping is just such easy money in this game. But of course, you have to have a ship that can do it, and the Kid is one of them. So that's great there for the economy. Second thing is, well, she's great at bullying other DDs, like I said. The way that this game calculates how much profit you get out of the damage you applied to a ship is that it looks at the amount of damage you did to that ship versus overall HP. So if you bully a destroyer for 10,000 HP and his total HP is 17,000, that's 2-ish thirds of his HP. You get the same rewards you do from doing that to that destroyer as if you had just farmed a GK for 70,000 HP. It makes no difference whatsoever in the calculations of the game when it comes to, again, the damage it rewards you versus the damage you did to the ship. So that is great. And of course, if you sink a destroyer, then again, it's like you farm down the entire HP of a tier 10 battleship. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. So you get those 2 things going for you right there with the Kid, just off the bat, if you go for a cap contesting gameplay style. And the Kid is good at that. She's, well, a Fletcher, which is actually a tier 9 American tech line destroyer, down tiered to tier 8. So you have tier 9 firepower in the guns at tier 8, at the cost of losing a rack of torpedoes, and I believe you get Benson torpedoes instead of the Fletcher torpedoes, so you get 1 rack of the Benson torps. And you get AA, too. You get a lot of AA. That rack of torpedoes that got ripped off of the Kid is replaced with more AA guns, which gives it an absolutely staggering ability to just simply shoot down planes. And planes are surprisingly worth a fair amount of HP. I'm sorry, of credits and XP in this game. So when you're in a situation like so many of us find ourselves in today, where the CV just keeps sending planes our way because they don't run out of planes anymore, right? They have infinite planes. You can shoot them down with the Kid and find yourself earning a tiny bit of profit with that as well. So, I mean, yeah, that's more money for you. So if you go to the caps, you bully other DDs, damage other DDs, sink other DDs, and cap that cap, you're going to find yourself making money by the end of your Kid game. And of course, too, if there's a CV around, you can shoot down their planes and add that nice cash to your stack. And since she is a tier 8, there is a mechanic in the game where when you are doing damage to higher tier ships, you get a boost to your economic income. And since she's so good at bullying destroyers, she can easily bully other tier 9 destroyers that aren't dedicated gunboats. You know, stuff like the Kitakazi and the Groningen, right? Thanks in a large part due to her heal. She has a heal. So you can pop that heal when you're getting in a gunfight with other destroyers. And again, most other tier 9 DDs will easily be killed by the Kid if you know what you're doing, using that heal to kind of brute force your way through the damage you'll be taking in from them. So that's great. Not only do you get the economic income from sinking a destroyer, but now it's a tier 9 destroyer or even a tier 10 destroyer, and you get that much more of a boost to your income. So if you know what you're doing with cap contesting, Kid is a solid money printer. It does take obviously more skill to do than driving a battleship around, because destroyer gameplay is much faster paced. You have a much smaller HP pool to work with, and you have to be more aware of your surroundings, right? And I'm not an excellent destroyer player by any stretch of the imagination, but if you are, look at the Kid. Great way to make money. All right, going down to number 4, we have the tier 7 British premium battleship, the Duke of York. Now, the Duke of York is an interesting little battleship. So take a King George V, give it slightly longer reload time, but improved AP pin angles, and now you've got a Duke of York. Oh, and give it 2-kilometer hydro for some reason. So the Duke of York is great for doing many things. It's a ship that I've long had a excellent relationship with. She does fantastic in tier 7 games and can keep up in tier 9 games thanks to her HE. She still has that British BB HE, which means that in tier 9 games, when a lot of other battleships are suffering, because the tier 7 to tier 9 up-tiering for battleships is super rough. You know, you have really bad concealment, you have terrible accuracy on your guns, you probably don't have very large guns at all by tier 9 standards. You know, most tier 7 battleships have 14 or 15-inch guns, and by tier 9 standards, that's just puny, right? And you don't really have the range for it. But with the King George, you don't really need to worry about the caliber of your gun because you have that British BB-HE. And that British BB-HE gives you the improved HE pins, the improved fire chance. That's stuff that, well, tier 9 ships can't really do much about. Yeah, they have more HP and armor, but they still burn like everybody else. And you're in a tier 7 battleship. So remember what I was saying about the boost you get from doing damage to ships of a higher tier than you. That does stack when you're doing damage to ships that are 2 tiers higher than you. And here you have a battleship with excellent HE that can farm tier 9 battleships with the best of them. Now, yes, it is still a tier 7 battleship. It still has thinner armor. It still has a smaller HP pool. But, it's still one of the best tier 7s to farm higher tier battleships with that isn't the Nelson, right? It's still available. And it's a coal ship. It's free as well. Even if you don't get stuck in tier 9 games, that short fuse AP with the improved AP pin angles is really great for deleting cruisers. So again, deleting a cruiser or removing most of a cruiser's HP is just the same as doing that to a battleship. So if you're a tier 7 battleship, run to tier 8 cruiser, which most tier 8 cruisers are still fairly squishy, and they won't have a great time when they get hit by your 14-inch AP that has the short fuse that will detonate inside of the ship rather than on the other side of it, and the improved pin angles. So yeah, it's quite the cruiser killer. so it can make a tiny bit of profit there. It is still a premium ship as well, so it does get the tier 7 baked in premium economy, so she can do you quite well if you are familiar with the British battleships and their playstyle. It's also a pretty fun ship in my mind because you can push in a little bit more with that hydro and those improved AP pin angles. It's more of an AP focused King George, but it still has the HE to fall back on, and again, you won't really have any problems making money with the Duke of York. So going down now to number 3, we have the tier 9 premium American destroyer, the Black. So take everything I said about the Kid, except for the Torps and the AA and the Heel, and apply that to the Black. Because the Black is one of the best cap contesting DDs in the game, hands down. And it has the tier 9 premium economy, which is the most profitable premium economy in the game. So just like the Kid, she's great for going to the cap and contesting it, but for different reasons than the Kid. One, she does get 2 racks of torpedoes. They are unique torpedoes to the Black. They aren't the normal Fletcher torpedoes, but you know what? They're torpedoes. They work. I find myself having no problem getting plenty of damage with these torpedoes. And 2, she gets that radar. So the Black, back in the day, I think her radar range used to be like 9 kilometers or maybe even 10, something absolutely ridiculous. They have nerfed it down to 7.5 kilometers now, which is more than enough to go into a cap, radar some DDs that are trying to camp there in their smoke screen, and then just have your way with them. It's always really funny too because the destroyers in smoke, it's like they don't anticipate to be radared that early on because, you know, typically most cruisers and such, they take a little while to get to the caps. Unless they just absolutely beeline to them, right? So in random battles, typically, you know, the destroyers show up. You have a couple of, maybe a minute or two before the cruisers will show up, and you can kind of, you know, maybe try to torpedo the other destroyer or force them out of the cap in some way, shape, or form. But when you get there and you're the enemy, well, in your case, the friendly destroyer showing up to the cap, and you have radar and you radar the enemy destroyer, well, then what are they going to do? And it's not a short duration radar like the pan-European destroyers radar that only lasts for 10 seconds. It's an American radar, so it lasts for quite a bit longer. Long enough to at least deprive the enemy destroyer of a good amount of its HP, especially when you're sitting on opposite ends of the cap from one another. So you can radar the enemy destroyer, either murder him or for sure scare him out of the cap, and then now, boom, the cap is yours. And like I said beforehand, capping is one of the most profitable things you can possibly do in this game. Not only is capping like profitable to you economically, guess what it also does? It helps your team win the match. So if you're just going from cap to cap, forcing enemy DDs out and either killing them or bullying them out of the cap, you're probably going to win. And yeah, you won't find yourself with like 120, 130, 150,000 damage, just go bouncing back from cap to cap, capping and forcing enemy DDs out because you're fighting DDs. But again, remember, the game rewards you based upon the amount of damage you've done to the enemy ship's HP, not on raw damage alone, right? So yeah, you might only have 50 to 60,000 damage, but guess what? It's from like 2 or 3 destroyers. So that's quite profitable too. And then you throw the cap XP on top of that as well, and you're making yourself a nice tidy profit with both XP and credits by the end of the match. And again, the Black still has, you know, 2 racks of torpedoes, so it's a bit better for dealing with other ships besides destroyers than the Kid. And I mean, it still has the Fletcher guns, right? So you can farm down battleships and cruisers once you're done dealing with the destroyers and capping and such. So she's a nice little destroyer for cap contesting and such, and she is available right now. And she, like the Duke of York, is a coal ship, so you can get her completely for free and be earning credits in no time. Again, if you know what you're doing in terms of destroyer gameplay. Now that brings us down to our number 2 slot, which is the tier 9 German cruiser, the Agir. So the Agir it's one of my more favorite tier 9 large cruisers. She is, well, you know, she was going to be a secondary cruiser back in the day, but unfortunately that was a little bit too good and Wargaming switched that around on us. So unfortunately she's not that. I would really like to have seen a secondary gear, but sad, right? Anyway, she is a really good AP cruiser. You see, the German line gets this absolutely wonderful German AP. They tend to have flat arcs, high alpha, and they punch well above their weight class, the German guns do. And so do these 305mm guns that the Agir gets. Which means she's great for dealing with cruisers or even battleships that are silly enough to give you your broadside. And the armor is fairly tough on the Agir. She does stand up out of the water quite a bit, so at longer ranges you will find yourself eating a fair amount of damage. But if you can't get in close, the armor is fairly tough, and she gets torpedoes as well to deal with any close encounters, right? So she's great for bullying other cruisers, and again, excellent for farming down battleships that are showing you their broadside. She has hydroacoustic search as well, so if you need to deal with torpedoes coming in from either destroyers or submarines, you got that going for you. And she's pretty maneuverable on top of all of that. So you get a maneuverable tanky cruiser with good AP. It's a winning combination there. Again, she is a tier 9 premium ship as well, so she gets the tier 9 premium economy on top of all that as well. So all this damage you're doing with your excellent AP to other cruisers and battleships, you're getting that tier 9 economic bonus for that. And since she is a tier 9, you're going to be up tier to tier 10 a lot, in addition to super ship games. And super ships do count as tier 11 in the game's economic formula. So you can apply this to the black as well. When you're doing damage to tier 11 ships and, well, super cruisers and super ships and super destroyers, you're getting a nice economic bonus to that. And since you have these AP guns that can punch through that armor and maybe not citadel them, but definitely get a good amount of damage from them, that's a nice tidy amount of profit you're going to be getting at the end of the day. Now, her HE is pretty anemic in terms of its alpha. I've never really had too much of a problem with the Agir's HE starting fires, so if you do need to do that against super cruisers or super battleships, it should be okay. But again, the AP is really what you want to focus on with the Agir. Just, farm down that superstructure, farm down that upper belt or those extremities, and if you can't pin them at all, swap it over to the HE. And again, you will be setting fires because of the decent reload if you build into it and the fairly accurate nature of Agir's guns. Now, some players say Agir's guns aren't that accurate. I haven't really had too much of a problem with them. They feel pretty solid in my opinion, especially again with how good the AP is on the Agir. So there's that. But the Agir, I really like her. She's a good tier 9 farmer as well. Again, seeing those tier 10 games and super ship games. And she's fun too, because when you can get close up and get into that nice brawling distance, she's great for that. All right, coming on down to number 1, we have the tier 9 premium American battleship, the Kearsarge. Now, yes, the Kearsarge is, well, what many players would consider to be, just an absolute excellent example of what's wrong with the game. You have a tier 9 battleship with 12 16-inch guns and a flight deck. It's a hybrid ship with a ton of guns on it. It's a monstrosity, but you know what it's also? It's also so friggin' good at printing credits. This thing is like the US Mint, if it could float, right? It's just such a good source of consistent damage because it doesn't have to deal with the downsides of, well, not having spotting, right? Because you have planes that you can launch. They can fly over to the enemy team, and if your destroyer isn't spotting for you, you can fly on over with your planes. The planes have the same rockets that you find on the Midway, and just blap them with your tiny Tims and do a ton of HE alpha damage on top. I almost forgot how to English there. On top of setting a couple of fires on the ship as well. So when you can't use your guns, you use the planes, and that downtime that most battleships experience where their guns aren't firing but they're not bringing in any damage, you're still getting damage in from your aircraft. And on top of that too, she still has 12 16-inch guns, right? Like, this is essentially a Montana a tier lower. Now, they are the 45 caliber gun, not the 50 caliber gun that the Montana gets, so she's nowhere near as good as at range as the Montana is. Despite what you may believe, this is a ship that's best played from like medium range in. The match watching in the background is about the furthest I would really want to get out from the targets. Anywhere past 16, 17 kilometers, your shells are just taking years to get to the target, and the target ship has plenty of time to maneuver organically or inorganically. They can see your shells coming and very easily move out of the way. So you do want to play the ship from medium range in. And the armor is actually pretty good for that. It's a ship that was designed from the ground up to be a hybrid. It's not a conversion like the Issei right? So the ship's still maneuverable. She still has good belt armor. The hangar is absolutely super farmable, so you do want to be on the watch out for that. Which, you know, I'm telling you to play it from the mid end, but it's like also watch this giant tumor on your back because it can get farmed. That's just the downside of the ship. But once you get in the groove of playing the ship from mid range, which is basically, you know, how you play the Montana in most cases, it's really easy to just get an incredible consistent amount of damage coming in every single match thanks to those planes. And if you have Halsey, it's no problem at all to get high caliber with the Kearsarge and get that increased reload time and increased plane regeneration rate on your ship to where you're doing damage at an even faster clip as well. So with that, you're able to bring in a steady amount of damage, which means you're able to bring in a steady amount of credits and XP into your account, and not really have a monetary problem if you have a Kearsarge, especially if you have boosters for your Kearsarge, like the green or blue economic bonuses. You're going to be bringing in like easily 1 million plus credits every game if you can manage like 150,000 damage. And again, it doesn't matter, of course, what ships you are targeting, right? But from my experience, 150k, a kill or two, easy, million plus credits every single match in the Kearsarge if you can pull that off. Which, again, if you're familiar with the American battleships, you've played the North Carolina, you know how to lead her guns, you got it here at the Kearsarge. And she's a coal ship. Yet again, another completely free ship, and in my opinion, one of the single best farming ships in the game. For credits, at least. So guys, let me know in the comments down below, what are your top 5 credit farming ships? What would you add to this list? What would you remove from it? Let me know all that jazz in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Monday, wonderful rest of your week. And finally, hope to catch you guys in the next one.